Okay, I think we're gonna start because I think she's gonna be. Sorry, we're waiting on my sister, but I guess she's a little bit late. So we're gonna start. I'm so happy, first of all, to see new faces. So it's super exciting to always, have new people and to kind of, expand our network and make sure that everybody can hear Shiur Torah every week because it's, very, very important to connect to Hashem. So the subject of today is Tzniut, one of my favorite topics and the hardest topics to cover because it's so controversial, and everyone's definition of Tzniut is so different. So some people believe that, wearing baggy pants is a form of Tzniut. It's not showing the gap of the legs, and it's, it's somewhat modest for the woman. And some people will say absolutely not. And so we always have, this ongoing debate of what is Tzniut to every single person. It's definitely something that's constantly going to be controversial and subjective. And I guess there's nothing really we can do for that. I think it really depends on each individual. But I'm going to try to cover a little bit of what is Tzniut, the actual definition, a few power stories of really what is the power of Tzniut, of being modest, and why it's so important, especially as Bnot Israel, as the children of Hashem, and as the Jewish people. So there's a beautiful story. It's one of my favorites, but it really helps us understand the power of Tzniut. So there was a woman who went to see a Rav, and she said to him, she's crying to him, and she said, my father has been sick for 4 years. Hashem Yishmor Alenu, he's had cancer that spread all over his body, and she didn't know what to do. And the doctor said he has 2 more weeks to live. That's it. And she didn't know what to do. She said, listen, we went to every single doctor. We went to every expert, every professional, and they all said the same things. He has 2-3 weeks maximum to live. And so she went to this rabbi and she's crying to him. She said, please, I'll do anything. I will literally do anything. Just tell me what to do. And so the rabbi tells her, stop crying. First of all, calm down. We can definitely, work on this. But I want to ask you one question. Now he can ask her any question. Do you keep Shabbat? Do you keep kosher? How strict are you with Nida? All of these things that he could have asked her. What did he ask her? One question. Do you follow Tzniut? Do you dress like a Bat Yisrael? Do you dress like a daughter of Hashem? And what did she answer? She said, Rabbi, listen, I'm just getting into the religion now. There's no way I can stop wearing my shorts and my tank. There's no way. It's too difficult for me. And he said, if you want to save your dad, nothing's too difficult, right? You said you'll do anything. And so the rabbi told her, I can tell you many things. Read Nishmat Kol Chai, start keeping Shabbat, start doing Netiyat in the morning. All of those things are incredible mitzvot. But the one thing that he said that is the most important for a Jewish woman is to start doing Tzniut, is to start, being a little bit more modest. And he said, you have to understand something. If your father was given 2 weeks to live, right? What does Hashem need to do? He needs to perform a miracle in order for him to get better, right? Because the doctor said that's it. Biologically and physically, he's gone. He has 2 more weeks. And so what does he need to do? He needs to go above nature in order to cure your father. And so what am I going to ask of you? You need to go above your nature. You need to go beyond what you can do, beyond what you really think that is impossible, which was for her Tzniut. And this way, Hashem is going to do the impossible for you. He said, I can't guarantee that your father will live, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to make a big difference. So I suggest that you go home, you think about it, but at the end of the day, you have to go above your nature in order for Hashem to do the impossible and to perform that miracle of saving your father. And again, he told her no promises, but I really think that this is one mitzvah that you really need to work on. So she thanked the rabbi gave her a blessing. She went home, she cried to Hashem. She went into her closet and she took everything out. She said she had 12,000 shekels worth of clothing, threw everything out. I don't know if she donated them. You're actually not supposed to donate your non-Tzniut clothing to another Jewish girl because then it will cause her to sin. So you're actually not supposed to do that. You can donate to a non-Jewish foundation, or, she ended up throwing it away. And so she said it was so funny because she went through her whole closet and she only had one modest clothing. And that modest clothing is what she used to buy modest clothing the next day. That was the only thing that she could do because she right away said, I'm going to make that change. After half a year, after 6 months, the rabbi was giving another shiur in Yerucham, and he was one of the last speakers. It was a conference meeting. And he was hurrying to his car to get back home, and he sees there's a woman running after him. She says, Rabbi. And he says, yes, how can I help you? And she says, do you remember me? You spoke to me about half a year ago. And he goes, of course, I remember about your father. And she said, right after you told me that I should go and change and start doing tzniut, I went into my closet, took everything out and started doing tzniut. And after 2 weeks, my father had to do some blood work and some tests, just to kind of see what's going on with him and how much time he has left. And he went to Tara Shomel. This is a true story, by the way. I'm not like making this up. He went to Tara Shomel, which is a big hospital in Israel. And the doctor comes out of the room and he puts his hands up in front of the daughter that was there. He puts his hands up and he said, it's not possible. It's not possible. And she goes, what do you mean? What's not possible? And he says, it's simply beyond the natural. It's beyond science. He goes, I can't explain this. And she goes, doctor, what do you mean? What can you explain? And he goes, all the blood work is normal. He has nothing. And it just, mind you, he had 2 more weeks left to live, and the cancer spread through his whole body. So now this is nothing. It's not like something that you can fix overnight. It's not something that doctors can fix overnight. And who is the healer of all healers? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, even when we're thinking that it's like the worst of worst things, there's always a Shem that is what can save us from almost anything. Everything, actually, not almost anything. So when the test came back clear, and when he said, oh my God, this is just beyond the science, beyond nature, she understood that that's what the rabbi meant. She went beyond nature for Hashem. She went opposed to her will, because it was so hard for her to do tzniut. And usually it's hard for each and every one of us to do it. It's very, very difficult mitzvah. But because she did the impossible, Hashem also did the impossible. That's just one story out of 1,000 stories about the power of tzniut. There's another story, just like a personal story of mine. When I spoke to my Rabbanit before I got married, she said, if I host your Sheva Bachot, she was in Ramot in Jerusalem. It's a very, very religious sect. And she said, you have to cover your hair fully after you get married in your Sheva Bachot, because, you're coming to Jerusalem and you're going to be married now and you have to cover it fully. And I said, no, like, I'm not at that level. Can I cover half? Like, I can't do all of it. She said, what do you mean you can't? You have to. Like, if you're coming to my home and, my husband is a big rabbi in yeshiva, you have to cover your hair fully. I said, you know what? Of course, if it's like to respect your home and if it's, to respect your husband, of course, no problem. I'm going to cover my hair fully. And I remember that day, oh my God, how am I going to do this? How am I going to cover? It was just difficult for me, because as a woman, your hair is like your everything, it's like when you cover it, it's hard. You look different. And so I put on my hair. I had like 1 or 2 hair coverings that she actually gave me. And I looked different, but I also felt different. I felt like a holy, like, energy that took over me, that it wasn't because I was in Jerusalem in a Sheva Bachot. It was because I felt like, wow, this is my connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And no other mitzvah really connected me to Hashem the way that the hair covering did. And later, my Rabbanit said to me after the Sheva Bachot, she said, do you know what is the merit of covering your hair? And I said, no. And she said, every mitzvah that you do is corresponds to different things. She said, specifically covering your hair, it protects your children, it protects your family. I didn't understand what that meant at the time, because I didn't have kids. And so when I gave birth to my first child, it kind of stuck to me even more. And now that I have my second child, I like reflect back on that moment. And I said, if all it takes is to cover my hair to protect my children, then who cares? I said, my children are my everything. If Hashem says, cover your hair and I'm going to protect your kids, what do I care about my hair? What do I care about what I look like? I already got my husband. I don't need to look, beautiful everywhere. I already got married, right? And you need to save your beauty anyways for your husband. So I said, if it's going to protect my children, I said in Hebrew, what do I care about my hair? It's just hair. Now, everyone has different, weaknesses. And for some people, it's much harder to just say it's just hair, it's just hair. Of course not. But really, when you have children and when you have that simcha in your heart and that unconditional love for your kids, you realize that everything that you do will be unconditional for them. And so when it means covering the hair and going beyond your nature, it really doesn't matter much, because I know that now I'm protecting my kids, and that it's a mitzvah for me, but it's going to protect my family and my children. And for me, that was the most important. So I want us to take a step. Yeah.
You're also much more beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. So I want to take a step back and I want to ask you, because it's important to me, I want to know what you really think is tzniut. Like, what is your definition of tzniut? You can just like say out loud, like what modesty, but what does that mean to you? Like, if you see a woman that's tzniut, what do you imagine? Okay, that's a good answer. I'm gonna repeat it here on Zoom, but that they're respectful to themselves. Yeah. Covering skin. Okay. Any other terms that come to mind? Like what comes to mind when you think it's new? Confidence. Okay. Long skirts. Shani.
Hashem's daughter.
Hashem's daughter. Okay. All good answers, Queen. Okay. Really good answers. The common schemas of tzniut that you'll speak to, especially non-religious people that really don't understand really the true definition of tzniut, is that they'll say, it's not showing provocative parts, it's looking unattractive, it's taking away the attraction from you looking ugly. All of these things are actually common answers that you'll get from people who don't really understand the term tzniut, and all they think is covering skin, not having freedom, and having to suffer because men can't keep their eyes to themselves, and they can't stop looking at your work because men are animals. All of these things you'll hear from people, and I understand where they're coming from, because it seems like okay, we need to protect ourselves from the men that are looking because they can't control themselves. So I'm here to tell you that that's not what's tzniut is. Tzniut is actually the opposite of looking unattractive. You actually need to feel beautiful in your skin no matter what. It's not, the Torah doesn't tell you, okay, cover your hair, you need to look ugly because you're already married. That's not what the Torah says. You need to feel good even when you're dressed tzniut, and you will actually feel even better and even more confident and have more self-worth when you are tzniut. I'm going to explain it in a little bit. So I'm going to ask you just something that's irrelevant, but I'm going to connect everything after. If someone were to ask you, do you believe in God? What are you going to say? If you're religious, yes. How come we can't see God, right? Why don't we see Hashem? Why is he hidden from us? So one possible answer is that he's holy. I'm not, so I can't see him. For example, Moshe was so holy in the Torah that he was able to see Hashem. And Avraham had a connection with Hashem, and so he was able to hear him. And all of those things basically get to the answer that we are just not holy enough to see Hashem's face. So if everything in the world was created by Hashem and he wants to connect with us, why is Hashem hiding from us? It doesn't make sense. If Hashem wants to connect with us, he created us to have a relationship with him. Why is he hiding from us? Does anybody know? Think a little bit logically. Yeah.
Because of our free will. In general, if we had a world where everything was not hidden from us and we would see everything as it is, then we don't have a decision in place for us to decide if Hashem is
It's a really good answer
or not. So
it's not my answer, but it's a really good answer.
because we wouldn't build a connection based off of belief and love if we know that he's there.
Okay, so you're gonna teach the class, and I'm gonna step up. Amazing answer. My sister mentioned that we wouldn't be building the connection that we have with him if he were to show his face. Shani's answer was really good too. But essentially, if Hashem ever appeared to us, right, and he says, I am your God, and here's my laws, and here are my halachot, what would happen? One day we would get excited, 2 days we would get excited, 3 days, a month, maybe 2 months. But what happens? How did Hashem create us? We get used to everything. Everything. Somebody who wins the lottery gets all excited, and then what? He gets a Porsche and a nice house, and he gets used to it in what? A month, 2 months, and then it dies down. They get used to everything. Even if HaKadosh Baruch Hu came to us right now, even if Hashem came to us right now and said, I am Hashem, I want a relationship with you, what happens? The hype kind of dies down a little bit, right? Because number one, we get used to it, and number two, it's not that special anymore. That's it, he appeared, So Hashem says, by hiding, he says, I don't want you to see me. I want you to get to know me. You don't have to see me to get to know me. Because when you look at someone, if you were to look at someone for 10 years and not talk to them, just look at them, okay? That would be a really boring job. But if you had to do that, you wouldn't really get to know them. You're just looking at them all day. You're seeing only the external. So what does Hashem says? I don't want you to see me. I want you to get to know me. I want you to get to know the inside. So when Hashem says that, what is that referring to? Tzniut, it's modesty. Part of the magic is the fact that something is hidden. You're hiding something. If you just look, you will lose interest. Now, what happens nowadays? A man, especially a man, needs to conquer, needs to feel like he needs to conquer the woman. And so what happens? He has 1,000 women that all dress, very provocative, and they attract attention. And so he ends up looking at her and he loses interest because there's nothing, that's all she is. She's just a body, right? And so when you become just a body and there's nothing to hide, right? Because there's nothing else to see, then he doesn't want to dig deeper because he sees just the external and he says, okay, she clearly just thinks that she's a body. And so, how you dress is really expressing your inner self. In one of my past Shulim, I mentioned something that Rabbi Twersky said, and that you can be two things in life. Either you could be ornamental or you can be functional. Ornamental means you could just look good in life, or you could be functional, which means that you exist for a purpose. You exist because you want to change the world, you want to be something greater than yourself. And what does that mean? It means that you're looking beyond the exterior, beyond looking good just for people to see, or just for people to look, or just for the likes and just for the comments. You want to build your inner self. And what does that mean? It starts from the inside, and then it also expresses the outside. And when I talk about tzniut, I'm not just talking about your inner self. We're going to talk about what that means, but it's the balance between the inner and outer self, meaning that if I'm modest inside, then my outside is going to express what's really here. And what does that mean? It's how you talk, it's how you act, it's how you act based on your knowledge, and it's how you dress. So we're going to go a little bit into that. But tzniut really means you're dressing the part. What does that mean? If you ever become successful, okay, you're a successful entrepreneur, and someone says, I want you to come and be on my show, okay, are you gonna go in jeans and a tank top? Ripped jeans, tank top, shorts? Why aren't you gonna dress like that? Why aren't you gonna dress like that? That's usually the way you dress. That's how you see friends. When you go buy groceries, that's how you dress. So why wouldn't you dress that way for an interview if you're a successful person? Right. Exactly. So you dress because you want to reflect the person that you are. And so if you ever become someone, hopefully you all will be, but when you're going to become someone successful and someone says, I want to interview you for a job, or I want to interview you because I want to see, how you got to your success, you're going to dress the part. And what does that mean? You're going to dress serious because you want it to be taken seriously. You don't want them to focus on the outside. You want them to focus on your accomplishments. And so you're going to dress maybe in like a nice dress that's covering here because you don't want them to focus on the wrong parts of you, right? And so I also want to make it clear, though, before we move on, that there's a huge difference between someone who is modest and someone there's a huge difference, I'm sorry, between someone who isn't modest and someone who doesn't dress modest, because there are a lot of women out there who are extremely spiritual and they're still wearing shorts and tank tops. Like, I've met them and I was one of them. When I was living in Israel, I was wearing shorts and tank tops, but it's because I didn't know better. It wasn't because I wasn't spiritual or because I didn't want to know. It's because I just wasn't exposed to that kind of life. And so when I would walk on Tel Aviv and a tayalet and I'm wearing shorts and a bikini top, I wasn't thinking every guy is watching me, oh my God, I look I really wasn't thinking those things. I can tell you from experience because that was really what I thought. And so for me, it was just, it's comfortable. It's very hot outside. It's the summer. I mean, I'm just gonna like walk out of the beach, just wear like my shorts and go home. I wasn't thinking, oh my goodness, everyone is sitting around me because of me. And so those women now who are wearing shorts and tank tops but are spiritual, they're not bad people. We're not here to kind of judge them and say, oh my God, like you're a really bad person because you're wearing shorts and this, but it's to tell you that you need to know better. And in order to know better, you need to get to know the Torah, and you need to get to know modesty, and you need to open your eyes to all of those things. Because if you don't, then you don't know it. You're not aware of it, right? You don't know any better. And so you're going to do all of those things without really knowing the beauty and the power of Tzniut. Most women who are internally modest, you'll notice that they'll talk the part and they'll act the part, but just the dressing part, is not in balance. And so what happens? They could be tzniut, but they're not tzniut all the way. And that's why I mentioned that tzniut is inner, and it's when the inner tzniut is in balance with the outer tzniut. This is the real tzniut. It's expressive of what's inside, and you're expressing it outward. And this is the reason why growing with Torah means that you're aware of its beauty, getting deeper than the surface and not doing things just to do them, right? And there are also women, by the way, who are very religious, right? You'll find women in Bnei Brak who are extremely religious, and they've dressed tzniut all their lives because that's all they know, right? It's out of routine. But they also may not know what is the magic, what is the beauty behind tzniut. I personally know it because I've gotten through the journey of not dressing tzniut and now dressing tzniut and seeing how it affects me and how it affects the people around me, how they act around me, right? And so in the Torah, the reward that you get is equal to how challenging the mitzvah is. And so I mentioned that for me, at least for me, modesty was extremely challenging my whole life. And I'm sure for most people it is, because now, especially, the external is a priority, right? Everything that you're posting on Instagram, it's a lot about the body and the looks and, how your hair looks and how your nails look. And it's all about the external. And so it's extremely difficult, especially now in this generation, to take a step back and say, hey, hold on. Am I doing the right thing? Is this aligned with the Torah? Am I actually tzniut? If you go beyond what is natural to you, and this is what I mean by getting the reward based on how challenging something is. If you go beyond what is natural to you, I can almost guarantee it that Hashem is going to go above and beyond what is natural in order to help you. Whatever miracle that he needs to perform will be performed because you are going above and beyond for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's midah keneged midah. This is how it works. So specifically, a woman who went from not modest, to modest is going to have a much bigger reward than somebody who's been doing it their whole lives. Not because one person's better than the next, it's not because of that, but just because the amount of commitment and the amount of investment it took you to get there is what Hashem sees, right? It's about the climb, not getting there. And so it's the law of the universe. The more you invest in something, the more you're going to be connected to it. Okay. And this is where we get to how doing tzniut, how performing tzniut gets us more connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. A perfect example is as a mother, when you give birth, right? And you carry the baby for 9 months. Why do you unconditionally love your child? Because you invested so much. You invested your time. You invested yourself physically into carrying the baby, into the labor of giving birth, and you're literally taking care of that child for the rest of your life. And so that investment is greater than yourself. And that is why you're so connected to your child. And so if in the same way you perform those mitzvot and you invest in them, this is where your connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu will become even greater. And this is where you'll feel your connection with Hashem the most unconditional that it's ever been. And this is what I felt, by the way, when I started covering my hair, because I was like, wow, I really feel a connection because it's so difficult for me to cover my hair. Let's go back for a minute to defining tzniut, right? We said we were talking about clothing and how we need to express what's inside into the outside. But when we talk about tzniut, it's not only how we dress, it's also how we act and how we talk. Knowing how to express yourselves in the right way, not speaking lashon hara, knowing how to behave in front of men, because sometimes there are specific halachot about keeping a distance when you're a married woman. There are a lot of halachot when it comes to speech, right? When it comes to everything that comes out of our mouths, our words, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu says speaking the words is one of the most powerful things. And so tzniut is not only how we dress, but it's also how we talk. Do we talk extremely loud and vulgar, and do we curse all the time? Or are we more laying low? We speak more womanly, we're more feminine, we're more soft with how we speak. We don't curse. For me, like, I think it was like 2 years ago where I cursed like one time and my friend was like, oh my God, what? And I was like, it was by accident, which was like, I'm so not used to you like cursing. And it just came out like just one time. But I said, it's so unlike me, right? Because the way we talk is who we are, right? And so somebody who curses a lot, and somebody, if you see somebody, for example, who dresses in, I don't know, ripped jeans, tank top, but she's very vulgar, always chewing like gum all the time everywhere she goes. So it's a certain characteristic that you're going to give her that you won't give somebody else who's a little bit more modest. And so the way we talk and the way we act directly corresponds to our tzniut. So it's not only the way we dress. This sounds extreme, by the way, but before I got married and I was taking classes, my kala classes, so my rabbanit said, you know that when you get married, you shouldn't have any guy friends. You can't like, speak to men on the phone. It's really inappropriate. And I said to her, what? I'm like, excuse me. And she was like, yeah, that's it. When you're married, you can't have any other like male friends. And I got so upset and I was like, what do you mean, like how is that fair? I had two male best friends that like I've been very very close with them for years before I got married, and I said, how am I supposed to just cut off that connection? And she said, your marriage is more important to you and that's your priority now, and so when you focus on your husband, there's no other male in the picture and there shouldn't be. And so I got upset. It took me some time to get over it, but then I realized that I'm going to give you a scenario just so that you kind of understand what I mean. But when you, let's say you get in a fight with your boyfriend, or you get in a fight with your husband or your fiance or whoever is in the picture, and you take a walk and you see, I don't know, another guy starts talking to you and you see how nice he is and he starts giving you compliments, right? But you're in the middle of a fight with your boyfriend. So what are you thinking? Look at this guy. He's so nice to me. Look at how he treats me. Why am I even with my boyfriend? It takes a second of an electric charge, of just that eye contact, of just one word that he said to you that could spark something. And that's why the Torah says, let me help you. Let me save your marriage. Just don't even talk to men, because why would you even want to take that step forward? It always starts with something innocent, and then it becomes, a step forward. And then you're like, oh, it's not that bad. And then, you end up being trapped. And that's, by the way, how the Yetzer Hara works. The Yetzer Hara, how it works is that he gradually increases that feeling that you just, I just lost the word that I wanted to say. Huh? What do you mean? No, like the Yetzer Hara basically just gives you more and more challenges, but it's not in your radar. You're not able to see it. And so when you see these challenges, you don't think it's your Yetzer Hara, you think it's you. And you're like, no, it's totally normal that I'm talking to someone. You told me this, by the way. It's totally normal that I'm talking to a guy. It's totally normal, totally normal, totally normal, until it's not normal, right? And so we want to make sure that we don't head into that direction. And the Torah says, let me save you the trip. Let's not even go there. And that's when I realized, you know what, maybe the Torah is right. Maybe, I should cut off that relationship, because I just don't even want to, don't want to even have the argument of whether this is platonic and what if the other side, has some feelings. We don't even want to go there. We want to make sure that our marriage remains innocent. So again, everything that comes out of our mouth is incredibly significant to Hashem. And so it's very, very important that we realize that it's not only about how we dress, again, it's about how we talk, who we talk to, and how we act according to what we know. I want to ask you a question now, because I know a lot of people are looking for their zivug now, and they're like, oh my God, I need to find a husband. And a lot of women, by the way, come to me and they said, I need to find my zivug. And I said, what's the most important for you? He needs to be religious. He needs to be in the Torah. Okay. So let me ask you a question. If you have a woman that comes to you, she uploads a picture on Instagram of her in a bikini, not saying that she's a bad person, this is like a judgment free zone, but she uploads a picture of her in a bikini, and she has someone, a man, looking at this photo. What is he going to think? Is he going to think, oh my God, she's such a tzadikah, this is the wife that I want? What is she going to think? Honest. She's just a body. She only cares about the looks, right? Because a woman that uploads herself in a bikini, not that I'm judging, this is not everyone, obviously there are exceptions to the rule, but it means that it's important for her how her body looks, if she lost a little weight, how does she look, with the top that she bought, whatever it is. It means that she's focusing a lot on the external. And so that person could be a really good person, a spiritual person, but she's uploading this picture, and so she's expressing to the zivug that she's looking for that she's not a serious person. And so that person could be looking for a zivug that's amazing, and she wants somebody that's shomer Shabbat, that's shomer kashrut, but then she's doing something that doesn't express what she wants. So there's an imbalance here, right? And so this is the problem. Our tzniut need to express what we really want, right? We want to get that energy out and attract the energy that we're craving. And so, especially when you're looking for that zivug and that mazal and that person that you want to spend the rest of your life with, so you want to make sure that you're expressing exactly what you want. And what does that mean? The way you dress, the way you talk, and the way you act. Every single one of you in this room, and I want you to know this, of course, is a very, very special individual, especially because you have an neshama and you're a daughter of a king. And I want you to remember that. When you realize that you're a daughter of a king and you remind yourself every single day, you have to dress the part. You can act like a daughter of a king and you can talk like a daughter of a king, but if you're wearing shorts and a tank top, you don't look like a princess, right? And so when you're thinking about that and you're reminding yourself every day and you're building that connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's going to come naturally. It's going to flow naturally that you're going to want to dress the part. If you respect yourself in a way where you dress the part, then slowly others will respect you. And so, and this is a perfect example, by the way, when I try to set up some friends with um, another person so that they're going to find their zivug or their shidduch, they tell me, I want someone skinny, I want someone with a thigh gap, I want someone with this. So again, we're focusing on the external and we're not realizing that there's a lot more than just the body. And how do you attract the right person? How do you attract the right zivug? By dressing the part, by realizing I'm not just a body, I have more than that. And so the way that we said Hashem wants you to get to know him without really seeing him by keeping himself hidden, we want to do the same thing and attract the right things in the same way. So before we even ask ourselves, is my skirt past my knee or past the elbow? Am I covering my hair the right way? I want to ask you, you have to ask yourself this: who are you? What are your goals? Where are you going? Because if you want to head in the right direction and you want to be the daughter of the king and you want to attract the right zivug that's going to take you seriously and say, this is the girl for me, this is the wife that I want, that's irat shamayim, that's that has that connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that dresses the part. Because if you don't know where you're going, and this was me, by the way, in Tel Aviv in the Tehelet, I didn't know where I was going, and that's why I didn't look. I wasn't looking in the Torah, what is Tzniut, what is not. I didn't really care at that point, right? Because I wasn't that connected with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so if you ask yourself, where am I going? What type of person do I want to be? Do I want to give off this sense of respect, this sense of worthiness? If not, then, do the same things every single day. But if you want to give off that impression of, I respect myself, I am more than just a body, then you have to start dressing the part. When I was living in Tel Aviv, yes. So men have actually a lot of modesty as well. Obviously, to be shomer einayim, to wash their eyes. There's also they can't go past a certain length with their hair because it's the midat adin, which is judgment. There's a lot of halachot against, not against, but for men that are completely different from for women. Women have more halachot for tzniut because we have a much more elevated neshama, and so we're a lot more than just a body, and so this is what we have to express again. Does that?
What? Because of the same reasons behind it, like the way that why we do modesty.
Yes, and I'm actually going to give you a perfect. I was actually getting to that, but there was a rabbi. His name was Rabbi Yochanan. He was born an orphan, and he throughout his lifetime he had 10 kids, and he lost all of them. And he said to one of his students, there was only one time in my entire life, this was right before he died, one time in my entire life where I witnessed irat shamayim, which is fear of the heavens. It's fear and respect for the heavens, because now it's very, very difficult to have that. We really love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but we don't really fear. We don't fear the consequences because we don't see Hashem, right? It's very difficult to say, oh my God, if I don't cover my hair, I'm going to get stoned. Like, it's not, we don't think of it in that way, right? And so he says, there was only one time where I witnessed irat shamayim. And he said, I was walking to the Beth HaMidrash, which is where he studies in Jerusalem, and he sees a 17-year-old in the window that was completely covered, like tzniut head to toe, and he sees that she's crying, and she's going like this, and she's praying to Hashem, and he's trying to listen to what she's saying, and she's screaming and she's crying. She said, Akadosh Baruch Hu, my mother, she sent me to get groceries, and she said, and I know that you created tzaddikim and rashaim, and I know that they're supposed to watch their eyes, but please, Akadosh Baruch Hu, I don't want to sin while I'm walking to the grocery store. Please, Hashem, like make sure that no man looks at me. Okay. She prayed, and she was all tzniut, she was covered and everything, but it's to show you that even when you're tzniut and even when you're covered, a man can still sin. And so she said, please, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I don't want to sin even when I'm covered. I don't want to have that sin, and I don't want any man to sin because of me, right? That was the one time where he said, oh my God, like this woman is like covered head to toe, and she's still praying and crying to Hashem because she doesn't want to sin, because she's so, afraid of it. And so it's to show you that even if we cover and we do our best, of course, men they're built differently, and so they can get attracted to anything, even if it's hair, elbows, whatever it is, and that's why we have all of these alachot, right? And so they have their alachot, and their alachot are to watch their eyes. Why? Because even the slightest thing, I'm not even kidding, some men are attracted to toes, like who knows, even the slightest thing, like seeing, one part of an elbow, I don't know, whatever it is, it could be just one man that's into that, and automatically he sins and he thinks of it in a different way. And so we want to make sure that we don't do that. And so that's why the rabbi said, Rabbi Yochanan said, it was the one time that I really noticed Yirat Shamayim, because he says that's how tzniut is so powerful and so important. Let me just see if I covered this. Okay. I want to end with something that Shlomo HaMelech said. He was the wisest king and the wisest man in the Torah. He says something, I'm going to translate, but he says, Ve'et tzenuim chokhmah. What does that mean? In those that are modest, there is wisdom. Does he mention women? Does he mention clothing in the sentence? No. He just says, in those that are modest, there is wisdom. What does it imply? That modesty is a vessel for wisdom. I'm going to explain. Does it mean that if I want to be wise, I have to dress like a geek and look ugly and walk on the street with like long skirts that I'm like constantly tripping on? No, that's not what it means. It means that when we are tzniut, when we are modest, we are wise enough to understand that we're more than just a body, and that we're more than how we look. I'm going to give you a perfect example. When you see a naked baby, it's the cutest thing ever. I'm like, I literally want to like bite their cheeks, bite their butt. Like it's the cutest thing. I'm like, oh my God, it's a newborn. They're so cute. Their skin is adorable, right? Why is it adorable? Why do we care why do we not care if it's nude or not? Because its soul is still developing. They don't know any better. They're so pure. They're so innocent. But if you see a 60-year-old naked, you're going to say, that's disgusting. Ew, like please put clothes on, right? Why is it different? Because a 60-year-old should know better. A 60-year-old is more than just a body. He is already a soul. He already has lived through life. He had time to develop his neshama. He should know better that he needs to put clothes on. And so in the same way that he should know better, we should know better as the daughters of a king that we need to dress the part, that we need to do better. And so I want to tell you something that it's important to remember. Life is not about what you know. It's how you act according to what you know. So most of us will go to our closets and we'll wear something tight, and we know it's not new, but we're like, it's okay. Like I can get away with it. There are a lot of religious women today that they claim that they're tzniut, and they'll wear, really nice boots or whatever. And they know that it's not tzniut deep inside them, but they'll still go out anyways. Right. And so the real tzniut, the real definition, it's not about what you know again. We know that it's not tzniut, but it's about acting in the way that you really know the definition of tzniut. It's acting in a way that your knowledge is equal to your behavior. This is a really funny thing, but I found out that Aristotle was asked one day by a student. Aristotle taught a lot about morality. He taught about ethics, how to be a good person. And a student came to him one day and he said, Aristotle, I don't understand. He said, you teach about ethics and morals all day, but you're immoral. You go with, you go and party and you do all of these things and you sin all the time. He goes, I don't understand how you could be teaching about morals and ethics. And he said something, it's hilarious, but I don't know why he came up with that answer. But he said, well, if I'm teaching math, does that mean I need to behave like a triangle? That was his response. And so the student that asked Aristotle this, why did he ask him that? Why would he ask him a question like that? Because it wasn't balanced. Because if you, right, if you're that great, you should behave that great, right? And so right now I'm teaching in front of you, but if you see me now going to a nightclub in an hour, you're gonna be like, hey, that's weird. You know, it's not balanced. Something's weird here, right? There's no balance between the inner and the outer world. And so the student that asked Aristotle this, what happened? The greatness of Aristotle started diminishing. Why? Because there was no balance between the two. And so when you create that balance, that you're worthy, that you're more than just a body, and you cover yourself, what happens? You reach that balance, and then people start respecting you even more. And they're saying, hey, this girl is stable. This girl knows, you know, she knows what she stands for. She's more than just a body. She has a real soul. She has a real deep meaning to her. I want to end with something extremely beautiful that I learned. I love like learning this and then sharing it because I really learned it like today or yesterday. Um, it is not because something is covered that it's valuable, but rather by covering something, you give it value. I'm going to say it again. It's not because something is covered that it is valuable, but rather by covering something, it gives it value. Okay? I'm going to give you an example. If your great grandmother handed down a ring that was 100 shekels, she bought it at the shuk, whatever, really nice ring. But she said, you know, I want it to be a heirloom for the family. I'm going to hand it down to from generations, okay? What are you going to do? It's valuable to you, right? So you're going to keep it close. You're not going to wear it every day because, you know, it's like your great grandmother gave it to you, but it's only 100 shekels. It's not that like valuable. But what do? You put it in the safe. Now, if somebody comes, a thief or a burglar comes into your home, what is he going to do? He's going to go straight to the safe, right? Where you hide all of your valuables. And he's going to look at the ring, and what is he going to say? Oh my God, this ring is probably $1 million. It's probably so expensive. I'm so excited. You know, I'm so excited to steal it, right? Why is it that he thinks it's so valuable? Because it's hidden, right? The second that you hide something is the second you give it value. Always remember that. In the same way, the more we value our body, the more we keep it sacred, and the more we make sure it's the most important aspect of ourselves. And we make sure that there is that inner sense and the outer sense that is balanced. When we act with dignity and when we show that by covering, we are more than just bodies, this is where we really start working on our connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu and our inner self. And when you're telling others, there's nothing to see here. If you want to know more about me, look here. And I always end with a, well, you know what? Let me just add another example because this is beautiful. But the Torah, right? When do we usually see the Torah? When we go to Beit Knesset on Shabbat. Usually during the week, they don't take out the Sefer Torah because it's so holy, right? And what happens when something is so holy? It's usually covered, right? The Torah is covered in the Aron HaKodesh. We usually don't see it the second it's taken out. You know, we have to take off all these covers. We have to stand up for it because it's so holy. But what happens? It's always hidden because it's something so valuable. In the same way that the Kodesh HaKodashim was also hidden, the Kohen HaGadol, you wouldn't see him most of the time. Everything that is holy in the Torah is always kept hidden. Your body is your most holy asset. And the more you cover it, the more you give it value. So I want to give you a toolbox because this is it's a hard mitzvah and it's not easy to do. By the way, a toolbox is that I give this every shul. It's the end where you can apply it to real life because it's like there's listening to a shul and then applying it. So it's two different things. But you want to reinforce the tzniut every single day. And by the way, when you dress, you usually dress based on your mood. So one day you'll feel like really pretty, so you'll dress in like a nice dress, and the next day you're like in pajamas all day. So your mood tends to change all the time. So the issue with that is that sometimes we're like, I'm not in the mood to be tzniut. I just want to wear like a tank top all day and I want to wear pants and walk out the door and just be comfortable, right? It's really, really hard because sometimes there's ups and downs. And so I want to tell you that the most important thing to do in order to create that want for Tzniut is to keep listening to Shurim on Tzniut, keep listening to the power of Tzniut, keep listening to the beauty of Tzniut, because that is the only way that you'll continue to gradually learn about the beauty and to gradually apply it. If you just keep stable and you finish the show and you're like, yeah, it was nice, but I'm not taking that step forward, then it's going to be really hard to just continue learning and growing with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And remember that working on ourselves again is one step at a time. I'm not saying walk out of here, take off all the clothes, donate them, and that's it. Now you're stuck with nothing and you have to buy a whole new closet. I'm not saying that. Take it one step at a time. What I did with covering the hair specifically was I said, okay, every Friday night I'm going to cover it fully. Then I took it, okay, every Shabbat, like all of Saturday, and also now every Rosh Chodesh. Or on my birthday, like now I keep adding days until it's like, okay, now I'm covering it fully, fully, fully. And this is how it works with everything, with every mitzvah, not just Tzniut, it's also keeping Shabbat. Everything needs to be done gradually. The last thing I want to add, and because I mentioned that it's a constant fight doing Tzniut and covering the hair and keeping Shabbat and keeping kosher. There's a woman that wrote an article, I think it was on Chabad.org, about the hair battle, it's called, because she was like, one day I want to cover my hair, one day I don't, one day I do. And she said something so beautiful. Rebellion is part and parcel of our nation's history. From as early as Adam's little snack in the Garden of Eden to Israel's golden calf party, we as people have not been what you call obedient, right? We always fought back with Hashem. Everything that He tells us, we're like, no, we don't want to do this. The golden calf, then Adam and Chava who ate the apple. We're just not obedient. We like to always fight back and we like to rebel. And so she says, regarding to her hair battle, she says, so I don't believe that my resistance to covering my hair suggests a lack of faith or moral muscle. It simply means that I'm human. Like Jacob with the angel, it is in our nature to wrestle. In essence, this may not be such a terrible thing because it means that we are in active engagement with Hashem. Much worse would be complete detachment, not only by ignoring the commandments, but also in doing them by routine. Hashem wants us to use the commandments, but also to draw close to Him by doing them and in the struggle to do them. Because even if it's hard for us and even if we wrestle with it every single day, at least we wrestle with it. At least we're in constant engagement with Hashem. It's not like we're saying, okay, I don't care, I'm ignoring Hashem. Hashem is not part of my life. I don't want to do Tzniut, and you're not even listening to Shurim and you don't care, right? You're in constant engagement with Hashem and you're wrestling. You're saying one day yes, one day no, one day I don't feel like it, but at least there's that one day yes, right? It's not just a constant no. So it is in our nature, it is in our blood, it is in Am Yisrael's blood to always say, I don't want to do this, to not be obedient and to wrestle. But at the end of the day, it is human nature. And so if one day you don't feel like doing Tzniut, okay, so the Yetzer Hara got to you. But remember that is a constant struggle. It's not something that's going to be like, okay, that's it, I'm covering my hair for the rest of my life. It's going to be one day your hair looks incredibly good and you're looking in the mirror and you're like, I can't do it, and one day your hair looks horrible and you're like, hey, let me just, put it in a bun and cover it up, right? So every day there's going to be that constant struggle, but remember that it is in our nature to be human and that we need to take it one step at a time and you do what you can. Okay, that's it. I don't want to finish the whole, too long. But I don't know if you guys have any questions or, yeah.
Okay, so I'm a big ski enthusiast, and I went on a ski trip with my friend who's more religious, more Tzniut than me, and she put on like her ski pants, her ski top, and then a skirt over her ski pants.
Okay.
And I'm not sure what her intention with Tzniut was, but it definitely got her a lot of attention. Like, what's this girl going down the slopes with a skirt on top of her ski pants? So my question is, where is that line between like attracting, like almost blending in to not get that attraction versus like covering the gap between your legs as one example?
So it's interesting that you say that because I actually learned that, so you know how there's a huge controversy between wigs and covering the hair, right? That's another part of Tzniut. And so they mentioned that if you move to a place where every woman is wearing wigs and you're going to stand out by covering your hair with a scarf, you need to wear a wig. right? Because the part of tzniut is not standing out and not drawing so much attention. It doesn't mean to look ugly. It just means not to draw too much attention to you. I mean, like, don't wear a neon pink dress when it's an all white party. Like, that's not, considered tzniut. And so in the same way, I think that especially, with your friend, it does make her stand out. But they say if it becomes a law where it breaks the tzniut, where she's not tzniut anymore, and like if she would have taken the skirt off, it would still be showing the gap whatsoever, then she still has to obey by the tzniut rules. So I guess it depends, but I know specifically with the wigs and the hair covers, like if an area where you move to or an area where you live, everybody wears wigs or everybody wears scarves, you have to adapt to that specific surrounding. But in that specific situation, I wouldn't know. I'm not sure.
Because she's not standing on in a way that is attractive to them. She obviously looks weird compared to other people.
Right, right.
So you're not attracting the wrong attention, you're just attracting curiosity.
Right.
Also, a big part of this youth is that the reason why we're supposed to be wearing skirts and not pants is because women are not supposed to be dressed like men. So that's a big thing. So in her case, she's doing her part by putting a skirt over her pants and not looking like all the other guys, which is one of the main
Yeah.
things.
So good answer. Anybody else?
And also, I just have to comment on that. And also, like, in regards to what Sharone was saying about, like, you can't show the form of your leg. So that's already a halakha of modesty. So, like, the example that she gave you about wigs and wearing, like, a covering, those are two things that are still in the same realm of covering your hair. So it's not really like one or the other that's
Exactly.
break halakha. Whether the fact that your friend was wearing a skirt, she wasn't breaking halakha. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I think it's matters of the halakha as well.
Yeah, perfect. Anybody else?
So I'm gonna play the devil's advocate, but so obviously the rise of feminism and like be free in your own
I knew you were
skin,
gonna
that
ask a
whole
question.
thing.
I was like, I'm getting ready
I
for
know the
Eden's
answers,
questions.
I don't need the answers, but it's for people listening. I think it's a big dilemma and conversation to have. But there's people that believe that the more skin that they show, the more they're confident, the more respect they have for themselves. Like not having other people's judgment affect them. So how can you communicate? Like how can you get them to understand that it's not the right way if they're telling you, but I feel good, I feel confident. If anything, I respect myself more. How do you?
I actually had that challenge with a friend. You'd be very surprised, but she teaches yoga and she posted a picture of her naked doing yoga. And I messaged her and I said, "Hey, is everything okay?" Because I've never seen her do that. And I told her, I was like, "Please, like, I'm not judging you at all. I just want to know if everything's okay and that it's my responsibility as a Jewish part of the Jewish woman to reach out to you and kind of let you know, like, if everything's okay and like how important modesty is." And she explained to me that she said, in the same way that for you it's so liberating to cover your skin, it's liberating for me not to cover my skin. So she said it's just crazy how opposites can have the same exact effect. And I had nothing to say to her because, well, number one, I'm not a rabbanit, so I haven't studied this for like years and years and years that I would have such a concrete answer. And so I would rather be silent than not give a good enough answer because I'm still learning and I'm still growing. But it's just interesting to me how, especially in today's world, like Eden mentioned, for people it is power to show skin and to own it and whatever it is. But at the end of the day, power is also knowing what the other end is seeing when they look at you, because you could be flaunting and be like, I'm so beautiful, and you're the only person that thinks that, and everybody else is like, oh my god, she's dressed like a what, right? And so you can feel powerful and you could feel comfortable because it's freeing, it is liberating, right? To take off all the clothes and be who you want to be, it is liberating. But it's just as liberating to be the opposite. It's just as liberating to say, I am not just a body, I can be covered and I'll have just as much confidence and I'll attract just as much men because they want to get to know me, and not in the way that they'll get to know someone who is showing all their skin, right? And so I think those are two completely different worlds, right? And so it's extremely subjective, like I mentioned. So that girl that I spoke to, she's Jewish, she's somebody that I know and that I hold very close to me. And so to me, it came as a shock, but to her, it was like, this is liberating for me. This is for me, this is being free. And so I told her, listen, if it makes you happy and it makes you feel alive and good, then I can't tell you not to do it. And even if I told her, she would still do it, right? Because who am I to tell her anything? But at the end of the day, I think that when it comes to a more serious note, like when she'll want to get married and settle down, we have to think about what type of person is she going to attract. Is that person going to love her for who she is or for the wrong reasons? I mean, again, you're attracting a certain crowd, you're attracting a certain energy, even if you feel liberated. It's not always about the feeling, it's also about the other side. How are they looking at you? How are they perceiving you? Does that answer your question?
Can I add?
Yes.
I also like.
Do you want to sit here?
No, I just I think it's like very interesting because there is a lot of girls like that nowadays where
Yes.
they struggle a lot with like their self-image, and for them it's like power, it's like whatever, they see beauty in a different way than some other people do.
Correct.
But I also think the fact that liberating isn't, for me, that's like a little bit of a problem when you use that word, because if I was living my life based on what was liberating, then this world would be in chaos.
Correct.
Because you're not living this world like.
And that's why I said it's not about the feeling. Also,
Yeah,
it's your beliefs. It's also your foundation. Is your foundation just to feel liberated? You could feel liberated your whole life, but you have other things, you have other goals, you have other priorities in mind. And so, if you want to get married and you want to settle down and you want someone that's religious and that's they actually say this, by the way, that you're less likely to be cheated on if your husband is religious and actually studies Torah, because he is aware of what is morality, what are ethics, versus someone who's not worried about anything. And if he cheats, then she's never going to find out, right? So again, what is the crowd that you're attracting? What is the energy that you're attracting? That's very important to know. So you can feel liberated. There are a lot of people who do drugs and they're like, I feel so good, I feel amazing. Does that mean that they're doing the right thing? Does that mean that it's going to be sustainable for their whole lives? I don't think so. But I mean, again, it's extremely subjective, and I guess it's every to each their own, and everybody, I guess, gets to the same consensus when the more they learn, they'll understand. So hopefully, Bezrat Hashem, we can take a step forward and take something upon ourselves, and listen to more shiurim to kind of move us forward, because it's a very hard mitzvah, and especially covering the hair for me at least. But it's important. It's extremely important to dress the part and to know that we are different from other nations. We are different from other women. We are Jewish women. We were the chosen ones for a reason. And so we have to treat ourselves not just like bodies, right? We're working on ourselves a lot more than just the external. Does anybody have any other question? No? Okay, thank you.